What if the biggest problem in your life isn't your situation, but the invisible patterns controlling how you react to it? This book explains why. Lesson 1: Your biggest obstacle is not the world, it's your own patterns. Most people spend their entire lives fighting the wrong enemy. They believe their biggest problems are outside of them: a lack of money, unfair circumstances, unsupportive people, bad timing, or a system designed against them. And while external challenges are real, the mountain is you makes a powerful claim. The true obstacle shaping your life is not the world around you, but the patterns operating within you. The mountain is a metaphor for your inner resistance, the repeated behaviors, emotional reactions, and subconscious habits that quietly determine how you respond to life. These patterns were not chosen consciously. They were built over time through experiences, conditioning, fear, and survival. But once they exist, they begin to run your life on autopilot. For example, someone may say they want success yet consistently procrastinate when opportunity appears. Another may crave deep relationships yet emotionally withdraw the moment intimacy forms. A person may dream of financial freedom but repeatedly make decisions that keep them dependent or stuck. On the surface, it looks like bad luck. Beneath the surface, it is a pattern. Self-sabotage does not always look like failure. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism, overthinking, or waiting for the right time. Sometimes it looks like staying busy instead of being effective. Sometimes it looks like blaming circumstances instead of examining choices. These behaviors protect us from discomfort, rejection, or fear, but they also prevent growth. The reason no external change ever lasts without internal awareness is simple. If your inner programming stays the same, you will recreate the same outcomes in new forms. Change the job and the same dissatisfaction appears. Change the relationship and the same conflicts repeat. Change the environment and the same emotional triggers return. The location changes, but the pattern travels with you. This is why motivation alone fails. You can feel inspired, disciplined, and focused for a short time, but if your subconscious beliefs still say, "I'm not capable, I don't deserve this," or "success is unsafe," your mind will eventually pull you back to familiar ground. The mountain does not move until it is climbed, and climbing it requires awareness. Recognizing your patterns is not about self-blame, it is about self-responsibility. Responsibility is not guilt, it is power. The moment you see how you contribute to your own struggles, you regain the ability to change them. You stop waiting for life to be easier and start becoming stronger. The book teaches that growth begins with radical honesty. You must observe your reactions without judgment. When do you shut down? When do you avoid? When do you react emotionally instead of consciously? These moments reveal the exact place where the mountain stands in your path. Once you understand your patterns, you stop fighting the world and start working with yourself. You realize that peace, success, and fulfillment are not found by fixing everything outside you, they are created by changing how you show up internally. The mountain is not there to punish you, it exists to force your evolution. And the moment you stop blaming the world and start understanding yourself, the climb finally begins. Lesson 2: Self-sabotage is not weakness, it is unhealed survival. Most people believe self-sabotage means something is wrong with them. They label themselves as lazy, undisciplined, broken, or incapable. But the mountain is you offers a radically different and far more compassionate truth. Self-sabotage is not a flaw in your character, it is a survival strategy that once kept you safe. Every self-sabotaging behavior began for a reason. At some point in your life, it protected you from pain, loss, rejection, or emotional overwhelm. Avoidance may have saved you from disappointment. Perfectionism may have protected you from criticism. Emotional shutdown may have shielded you from hurt. Procrastination may have helped you escape fear. These behaviors were not created to destroy your life, they were created to help you survive it. The problem is that survival mechanisms don't automatically update themselves. What once protected you in the past can quietly sabotage you in the present. The mind continues to repeat familiar patterns long after the danger has passed. And because these behaviors operate subconsciously, you often don't realize why you keep holding yourself back. This is why willpower alone never fixes self-sabotage. You cannot force yourself to stop a behavior that your nervous system believes is necessary for safety. When you try, your body resists, anxiety increases, focus disappears, motivation fades. The sabotage returns not because you're weak, but because your system is trying to protect you. The book emphasizes that healing does not begin with self-discipline, it begins with self-understanding. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you must ask, "What is this behavior trying to protect me from?" That single shift changes everything. It replaces shame with awareness. and awareness creates choice. When you judge yourself, you reinforce the pattern. When you observe yourself with compassion, the pattern begins to loosen. You start to see that your fear of success may be tied to fear of visibility. Your fear of commitment may be tied to fear of abandonment. Your resistance to change may be tied to a past where change meant loss. Self-sabotage dissolves not when you fight it, but when you meet it with understanding. As you build emotional safety within yourself, your nervous system no longer needs to cling to outdated defenses. Slowly, naturally, the behavior fades. The lesson is simple but profound. You do not need to fix yourself, you need to heal the part of you that learned to survive. And once survival is no longer the goal, growth becomes possible. Lesson 3: what you avoid emotionally will control you. Most people believe strength means staying positive, staying busy, and pushing uncomfortable feelings away. They distract themselves with work, entertainment, or motivation, hoping unwanted emotions will disappear on their own. But the mountain is you delivers a hard truth. Emotions you avoid do not vanish, they quietly take control of your life. When emotions are suppressed, they don't dissolve, they transform. Unfelt sadness becomes numbness, unprocessed fear becomes anxiety, avoided anger becomes resentment, ignored grief becomes exhaustion. What you refuse to feel consciously begins to express itself unconsciously through your behavior, decisions, and reactions. This is why many people don't understand themselves. They say, I don't know why I procrastinate, I don't know why I overreact, or I don't know why I feel stuck. The reason is simple: the emotion driving the behavior has never been acknowledged. Avoidance creates confusion, awareness creates clarity. The book explains that emotional discomfort is not the enemy, resistance to it is. The moment you stop fighting a feeling and allow yourself to experience it fully, its grip weakens. Emotions are temporary by nature. They pass when they are felt, they linger only when they are avoided. Avoidance often feels like protection. If you avoid fear, you believe you stay safe. If you avoid sadness, you believe you stay strong. If you avoid disappointment, you believe you stay motivated. But in reality, avoidance shrinks your life. It limits your choices. It keeps you trapped in familiar patterns because unfamiliar emotions feel threatening. Growth requires emotional courage, the willingness to sit with discomfort without immediately reacting or escaping. This does not mean drowning in emotion or letting it control you, it means observing it without judgment, numbing it, allowing it, letting it move through you instead of letting it run you. When you face emotions directly, you reclaim power. Fear no longer dictates your decisions. Anxiety no longer decides your limits. Past pain no longer controls present behavior. You become responsive instead of reactive. The mountain is not the emotion itself. The mountain is the avoidance of it. And the moment you stop running from what you feel, you stop being controlled by it. Emotional honesty becomes freedom. And freedom is where real transformation begins. Lesson 4: your life changes when your self-concept changes. Most people believe that success comes from setting better goals, working harder, or staying motivated for longer. But the mountain is you explain something deeper and more confronting. Your results are not limited by your effort, they are limited by how you see yourself. Your self-concept is the internal story you hold about who you are. It includes what you believe you deserve, what you believe you're capable of, and what feels normal or safe for you. And whether you realize it or not, this self-concept quietly controls your decisions. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall back to the level of your identity. This is why people sabotage success right after they achieve it. They get the opportunity, the recognition, the progress, and suddenly feel uncomfortable. Not because success is bad, but because it conflicts with how they see themselves. If deep down you believe you are not good enough, not disciplined, or not worthy, your mind will work to restore what feels familiar, even if familiar means struggle. External change without internal change never lasts. You can force new habits for a while, you can chase goals with intensity, but if your identity remains the same, the old behaviors return. The mind always tries to stay consistent with who it believes you are. The book teaches that transformation happens when identity shifts first. When you stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become?" everything changes. Actions become natural instead of forced. Discipline becomes alignment instead of struggle. This doesn't require pretending or affirming lies, it requires evidence. Every small promise you keep to yourself rewires your self-concept. Every time you act in integrity, you update your identity. Confidence is not something you think your way into, it is something you build through repeated proof. When your self-concept expands, your comfort zone expands with it. You stop resisting growth because it no longer feels unsafe. Success feels normal, consistency feels natural, change feels possible. You don't change your life by chasing a new future. You change your life by becoming a new version of yourself. And once your identity evolves, your reality has no choice but to follow. Lesson 5: Repetition, not intensity, creates real change. Most people try to change their lives in bursts of motivation. They wait for the perfect moment, feel inspired, and then attempt massive transformation overnight. For a few days, they feel powerful, focused, driven, and then slowly the intensity fades and old habits return. The Mountain is You explains why this cycle keeps repeating. Real change is not built through intensity but through repetition. Intensity relies on emotion, repetition relies on identity. Motivation is unstable, discipline fluctuates, energy rises and falls, but small actions repeated consistently reshape your nervous system and your self-concept over time. They create internal evidence that says, "This is who I am now." And once something becomes part of your identity, it no longer requires force. The book emphasizes that lasting change is quiet. It is not dramatic. It is often boring. It looks like choosing the same healthy behavior even when no one is watching. It looks like showing up on average days, not just inspired ones. It looks like doing less but doing it consistently. This is why people fail when they rely on willpower alone. Willpower is a limited resource. Repetition builds automaticity. When a behavior becomes automatic, it no longer drains mental energy. It becomes normal. Repetition also retrains your emotional system. Each small action signals safety to your mind. There is no shock, no threat, no overload. Change becomes sustainable because it feels manageable. Over time, resistance dissolves. The goal is not to overhaul your life in a week. The goal is to create patterns that compound. Tiny actions performed daily reshape your future quietly but powerfully. This is how identities are rewritten, not through extremes but through consistency. You do not become different by doing something once. You become different by doing it again and again. And when repetition replaces intensity, change finally lasts. Lesson 6: Emotional regulation is the real superpower. Most people believe success depends on intelligence, talent, or discipline. But The Mountain is You reveals a deeper truth. The ability to regulate your emotions determines the quality of your decisions and therefore the direction of your life. Emotional regulation does not mean suppressing feelings or pretending to be calm. It means being able to experience emotions without letting them control your actions. The moment emotions take over, clarity disappears. Fear leads to avoidance. Anger leads to impulsive reactions. Shame leads to withdrawal. In these states, even capable people make poor choices. This is why many people know exactly what they should do yet fail to do it. The problem is not knowledge, it is emotional overwhelm. When emotions spike, the rational mind goes offline. The nervous system shifts into protection mode. And instead of responding thoughtfully, you react automatically. The book explains that growth requires the ability to stay present during discomfort. When you can sit with fear without escaping it, fear loses its authority. When you can feel anxiety without acting on it, anxiety stops dictating your limits. Calm awareness creates space, and in that space, choice becomes possible. People who master emotional regulation don't avoid discomfort, they move through it deliberately. They pause instead of panic. They observe instead of explode. This is not passive behavior, it is controlled strength. Over time, this skill compounds. You stop making decisions based on temporary emotions. You stop sabotaging long-term goals for short-term relief. You become consistent not because life is easy but because you are stable. Emotional regulation is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming grounded. And once you learn to manage your internal state, external circumstances lose their power over you. This is why emotional regulation is a superpower. It allows you to act with clarity when others react with chaos, and clarity is what builds a life that actually lasts. Lesson 7: Becoming your highest self requires letting go of your old identity. One of the hardest truths in The Mountain is this: you cannot become the person you want to be while holding on to who you used to be. Growth is not just about adding new habits or goals, it is about releasing outdated identities that no longer serve you. Most people try to change their lives while keeping the same self-image, same emotional patterns, and same comfort zones. They want a new future without saying goodbye to the old version of themselves, and this creates inner conflict. The mind resists change not because it is bad, but because it threatens familiarity. Your old identity is safe because it is known. Even if it is painful, it is predictable. Struggle becomes familiar, limitation becomes normal, and the nervous system prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. This is why people unconsciously cling to habits, relationships, and beliefs that keep them stuck. The book explains that transformation always involves loss, not the loss of something valuable, but the loss of what is outdated. This may include old stories you tell yourself, like "this is just how I am," or "people like me don't succeed." It may include relationships built on your former version. It may include habits that once comforted you but now restrict you. Letting go can feel uncomfortable, lonely, and uncertain, but that discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong, it is a sign that identity is shifting. You are no longer who you were, but not yet who you are becoming. This space feels unstable, but it is where growth happens. Becoming your highest self does not require fighting yourself, it requires outgrowing yourself. It means choosing alignment over familiarity. It means allowing your values, behaviors, and self-image to evolve together. The mountain is not climbed by force, it is climbed by release. And when you finally let go of who you no longer need to be, you create space for who you were always meant to become. Lesson 8: Awareness is the first act of freedom. Most people believe freedom comes from changing their circumstances. They think that once their problems disappear, their life will finally feel lighter. But the mountain is you teaches a quieter, more powerful truth. Freedom does not begin with control, it begins with awareness. Awareness is the moment you stop living on autopilot. For most of life, people operate unconsciously. They react instead of respond. They repeat the same habits, enter the same situations, and experience the same emotional outcomes without fully understanding why. They call it fate, luck, or personality, but what's really happening is unseen patterns running the show. Awareness interrupts that cycle. The moment you notice your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without immediately acting on them, you create distance between impulse and choice. That distance is freedom, not because the problem disappears, but because it no longer controls you automatically. The book emphasizes that awareness is not about fixing or changing anything right away. It is about seeing clearly, seeing when you are avoiding discomfort, seeing when fear is driving your decisions, seeing when old wounds are shaping present behavior. Nothing can be healed while it remains unconscious. This is why awareness often feels uncomfortable at first. When you become aware, you can no longer pretend. You can no longer blame only the outside world. You begin to see your role not with judgment but with honesty, and that honesty can feel confronting. But awareness is never meant to punish you, it is meant to empower you. When you become aware of a pattern, it loses its invisibility. A habit you can see is a habit you can interrupt. An emotional trigger you recognize no longer surprises you. A belief you observe is no longer absolute truth, it becomes something you can question. Without awareness, change is accidental. With awareness, change becomes intentional. The book makes it clear you do not need to control every thought or emotion to be free, you only need to be aware of them. Awareness brings choice, choice creates direction, direction creates change. Freedom is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of consciousness within it. And the moment you begin to observe yourself instead of being ruled by yourself, the climb becomes possible. Awareness is not the destination, but it is always the first step. Lesson 9: Discomfort is the price of becoming. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort. They avoid hard conversations, difficult emotions, uncertain decisions, and unfamiliar situations. Comfort feels safe, familiar, predictable, but the mountain is you reveals a truth that changes how you see growth forever. The life you want exists on the other side of discomfort, and there is no way around it. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. Every time you grow, you leave behind what is familiar, and the nervous system does not like unfamiliar territory. Even positive change can feel threatening because it disrupts what feels normal. This is why people often feel anxious when they start improving their lives. The discomfort isn't danger, it's expansion. The book explains that most people confuse discomfort with failure. When things feel hard, uncertain, or emotionally challenging, they assume they're doing something wrong and retreat back to old habits. But in reality, discomfort is proof that you are doing something right. Avoiding discomfort keeps you trapped in the same version of yourself. Choosing discomfort consciously and deliberately is how you evolve. This does not mean forcing suffering or glorifying pain. It means allowing yourself to feel uncomfortable without immediately escaping it. It means staying present when your instincts tell you to run. It means choosing long-term growth over short-term relief. Every meaningful transformation demands this exchange. You trade comfort for capacity, you trade familiarity for possibility, you trade who you were for who you are becoming. The mountain feels steep not because you are weak but because climbing requires effort, and effort always feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. The book teaches that discomfort is temporary but avoidance is permanent. When you avoid discomfort, the same fears repeat in different forms. When you face it, you move through it and it loses its power. Becoming is not comfortable, but staying the same costs more. And the moment you stop asking, "How do I avoid discomfort?" and start asking, "What is this discomfort shaping me into?" you stop resisting growth and start rising into it. Lesson 10: Healing is not linear, but it is inevitable with consistency. Most people believe healing should be a straight line, constant improvement, fewer bad days, steady progress forward. And when they experience setbacks, emotional lows, or old patterns resurfacing, they assume they are failing. The mountain is you dismantles this belief and replaces it with a freeing truth. Healing is not linear, but it is real when it is consistent. Growth does not move in a straight direction, it moves in cycles. You revisit the same emotions at deeper levels. You notice old habits returning not because you are regressing, but because you are now aware enough to see them. What once controlled you unconsciously now appears in your awareness, asking to be resolved fully. Setbacks are not signs of weakness, they are signs of integration. The book explains that healing often feels messy before it feels peaceful. Awareness can temporarily increase discomfort. You feel more, notice more, and question more. This does not mean healing isn't working, it means it is. Consistency is what transforms awareness into stability. Not perfection, not intensity. Consistency. Showing up for yourself even on days when progress feels invisible. Choosing healthier responses again and again. Practicing emotional regulation even when it's uncomfortable. Each time you respond differently to an old trigger, you weaken its hold. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, you rewire your nervous system. Each time you stay present instead of escaping, you build emotional resilience. These changes are subtle, but they compound. Healing is not about eliminating pain forever. It is about increasing your capacity to move through it without losing yourself. Over time, what once overwhelmed you becomes manageable, what once controlled you becomes information, what once hurt you defines you no longer. The mountain does not disappear overnight, but with consistent effort, it becomes climbable. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you look back and recognize that the struggle no longer owns you. Healing didn't happen all at once, but it happened because you stayed. The mountain is you teaches us one powerful truth above all else. The hardest battles are not fought outside of us, they are faced within. Every pattern you become aware of, every emotion you stop avoiding, every old identity you release is a step upward, not a dramatic leap, a deliberate climb. This journey is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming conscious. It is about choosing growth even when it feels uncomfortable. It is about staying consistent even when healing feels slow. And if this message resonates with you, it's because a part of you is already ready to change. So here's your invitation. Don't just listen, reflect. Don't just understand, apply. Pay attention to the patterns running your life. Sit with the discomfort instead of escaping it. And take one small, honest step toward the person you are becoming. If you found value in this summary, like this video, it helps this message reach others who need it. Subscribe to the channel for more deep, transformative book summaries like this. And comment below, what is the mountain you're currently climbing? Your awareness is the beginning. Your consistency is the path. And the climb is worth it.